On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1964. We're going to be taking a look at Sarah Vaughan, and she's going to be performing Misty. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, with this performance, I am going to leave in the intro where Sarah's talking to the crowd, because it's always interesting to compare somebody's speaking voice with their singing voice, and we'll do that with Sarah, but there is so much to point out about this voice. I'll let it play through. I will be jumping into this, by the way, so as always there's a link to the original performance video in the description below if you just want to watch it the whole way through without me interrupting. But let's get into it and see how Sarah gets on.
Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very nervous up here. I got a cold today. Today I got to do TV. I got a cold. That's fine. But anyway, I do hope that you are enjoying our show. And right now I'd like to do a little tune that I recorded while I was over here not in Stockholm, but while I was in Paris in '58. Tune that was written by Earl Garner. And I do hope you enjoy Misty. I'm sorry I don't speak your language. Good. Accompaniment? Huh? Good. Look at me. I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree. Feel like I'm clinging to a cloud I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in here because right at the beginning of the performance, I mean, there's just so much in that, in the way that Sarah gets the cue in order to give herself that reference for pitch for when she then starts singing. But when we go back to the beginning, you can see that she gets that cue, and generally what will happen is somebody will start singing and they'll hit their note because they've just been given that reference point. Whereas Sarah doesn't start, and she actually talks with the crowd because she doesn't speak the language, and this was, I think, in Sweden, so she doesn't speak Swedish, and she's just telling the audience that, but she's talking to them and still is keeping this reference point in her head. And I think it must be probably something that she could just naturally do, that once she's got that reference point, even if her attention is taken off in a different direction, she'll come back just perfectly on key and in key. But let's just listen to this again. There it was, just that tiny little bit of piano. So now she knows where she's coming in.
I'm sorry I don't speak your language.
So now all of this time, it's amazing the amount of time that elapses between her being given that reference point and then all this talking going through.
Accompaniment? Huh? Good. Look at me.
And she wasn't given any reference point there. So yeah, just massively impressive from a tuning perspective, being able to hear where she should be, or just to come in bang on pitch. But then as we have a little look through, and I'm going to let this play through, not that I want this video to go on for years, because it definitely could do with Sarah's voice, looking at it in detail, but have a listen to this.
I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree.
Look at this vibrato, or just listen to it. But I mean, look at it on the pitch monitoring software, how wide this vibrato is. And she actually starts off with a tighter vibrato, and then it gets wider and wider and wider. So by the end of it, if we're looking over here, 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones worth of vibrato, really dramatic, but so well controlled. And, you know, when we slow that down, of course, we're going to get that, you know, it's going to be really dramatic. Have a listen. You know, it's like that. Obviously, when she's singing it and keeping that perfect frequency of vibrato, it just sounds great because there's so much expression in there because of how dramatic that vibrato is. But as we go back, again, if we're looking at pitch, this is just a great example of a great voice, which is irrelevant to these lines of A440 standard pitch equal temperament, because when we're looking at where she is, and also look for the way that she just flows and the glissando that she has, sliding from one note to the next and keeping so many phrases just all in one breath. But here, going from the A4, which you can see that she's really consistent with it, but we've got expression in this voice, which means that she's not going to be on these lines all the time. It isn't manipulated, it hasn't been pitch corrected, it's not auto-tuned. This is just the natural expression of the voice. And see that the way that we're below the A4 and even further below the A4, and then absolutely bang over the A4, and then just bang on the A4 again. But this natural variation in the voice, when you listen to it, it gives it a smoother sound because we're not on tracks here. So when something is manipulated, it's on tracks. It's always going to be on these lines because either it's done automatically, and that generally happens live with auto tune, that's why it's called auto, or in the studio with pitch correction, and which is somebody manually putting it on these lines. So when it is put over the lines, it's going to eliminate the illusion of having a smooth transition from one note to the next, because it's not smooth, because you've got a finite value as to where that note is going to be from one note to the next, because it's always going to hit these lines perfectly. But listen, I mean, throughout this whole performance, to this smooth vocal, and it's not only because it's just free to go where it does, but just Sarah's tone, her control, the delivery. And going back to her talking voice, she was in and around G3, that kind of area. And you can see here, yeah, G3, G sharp 3. And then when we start with the actual vocal and she starts singing, we're now up to the G sharp 4. So where she talks, she's going an octave higher than that. And this shows you, and you can hear it, that her talking voice is really soft. And when she gets into her singing, all of a sudden, she's now singing. You know, she's using support. She's, you know, relying on that diaphragmatic support and breath that she's taken, so that when she hits these kinds of notes, obviously she's got that perfect airflow to just make the notes last for as long as she wants to, because she's not wasting air here. Have a listen.
I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree.
So going from that really softly spoken vocal, and I'm just going to take it back so we can have a listen.
Not in Stockholm, but while I was in Paris in '58.
Listen to her voice. How light it is, how airy and breathy it is. There's no support in her talking voice. And the other thing that she says at the beginning is that she's got a cold. And this is her voice with a cold. Most people will give their left arm for this to be their voice, just 100% fully fit.
I'm as helpless as a kitten.
Obviously it's going to be high for me because I'm a guy, but we get that. So the vocal cords are now coming together, rather than if we were doing her talking voice up there, it would be that kind of sound. So again, when people say, oh, I can't sing, I haven't got a voice, I haven't got the natural ability, you have to start appreciating that singing is not like talking. You might have a breathy voice that might be an octave lower, exactly the same as Sarah's voice, but then when you start taking it from and start kind of leaning onto your diaphragm a little bit and, you know, compressing the sound a little bit, you might find that, oh, that doesn't sound the same as when I talk. You can connect your vocal cords a lot more with, vocal technique. Obviously, it takes a hell of a lot of training and practice in order to do it. But, I mean, Sarah's got that quality in her voice where we know she's now an octave higher from where she normally talks, but she's got total control and she's just amazing to listen to. But as we are looking through, we are looking at one of the best voices of all time here. And look at where it falls naturally. So, again, it begs the question, why this obsession with sticking notes on lines now in 2024 when you've got a voice like this that is showing you freedom is what it is all about, because that's where you get the expression and the connection.
Feel like I'm clinging to a cloud I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way and 1,000 violins begin to play.
Now, when we're talking about a vocalist who is singing at this kind of level, it really is like an instrument. And because of the way that she's flowing from one note to the next, it's almost like you would have a fretless bass, for example, sliding up and down, or a violin where you don't have frets. You get the freedom to move up and down and get all of the microtones between the notes. So basically the spaces between these lines. And when we're talking about microtones, have a look at where Sarah is falling on this pitch graph, is what we're looking at. But she's perfectly here between the notes that everyone now in 2024, producers would say, oh, she should have hit either the A4 or the G sharp 4, because this noise here, this isn't a key on a piano, this is perfectly between the keys.
Might be the sound of your hello that muse.
I mean, that hello was just crazy. God, I could literally look at this millisecond by millisecond. But again, these intervals of and kind of sliding as well. The other thing that I want to mention about Sarah's voice is that when you're listening to a voice like this, it does sound like an instrument, and especially with her in other performances, and well, in this performance, but picking out notes that are just vocal extemporizations. She's not reading these notes. As maybe somebody who's an instrumentalist and might be classically trained to read music and play it and just play what they're shown to play, Sarah's not doing that. This is very much, how I love to play guitar, but I love players that just extemporize and don't just play endless notes of a scale, or get caught in particular runs that they always play. But you can tell when somebody's consciously coming up with lines, either vocally or instrumentally, because they are giving you melodies that aren't really fast. They are, because they're conscious, they are something that's being created. It is creativity. That's what it is at the end of the day. But it's personal to them. They're choosing the notes and the melodies that they are literally thinking of as they go along. Not something that, oh, right, I'm in that key, that means I can play this scale. Exactly the same here with just the freedom of, playing her instrument, which is her voice, deciding to go there just instinctively because it just feels right at the time. And it's not something that, she's not singing all of these lines because, oh, let me remember the line that I rehearsed to sing at this part of the song. It's nothing like that. And that's why it's so different, because every single performance will be unique. And that's the great thing about watching live singers.
I get misty the moment you're near.
I mean, the great thing is you can just listen to the accompaniment as well, and how relaxed it is. You know, this isn't playing along to a click track here. This is total feel from the instrumentalist, and this is the great thing again about having something that's totally unedited, is you get a live performance, and it is this living, breathing thing between instrumentalists and Sarah with her voice being an instrument that is sitting in with everything else that is being played. So they're just working off each other, and that's why it's great, and that's why every performance is going to be so unique.
You can see that you are leading me on, and it's just what I want you to do. Don't you notice how hopelessly I'm lost? That's I'm following you.
I mean, just holding these notes with this absolutely rock solid vibrato. But just going back again, you know, going up here, this, you know, D5, absolutely solid. And the way that she kind of just floats up here to the B4 in more of a kind of head voice sound. Again, this is a dynamic journey that she's taking you on, just showing you all the different parts of her voice and how she can just use this instrument however she wants it to. There's no straining here or anything. And again, she's got a cold, so this is her with a cold. Everybody here is really singing from the same hymn sheet because they are dynamically in exactly the right place and where they need to be. And they know where that place is, and that can be a skill in itself, just knowing where you need to be behind the vocalist so that that vocal can shine and just sit on top. And then you might have a little bit of extemporization on the piano that just pops up for a bar or two as being another little focal point. But then as soon as Sarah comes in again, back to where you were. I don't want to get into too many details, but it's just such a great performance from every single angle. So listen out for the percussion here.
Hopelessly I'm lost. That's who I'm following you. On my own.
And that's what I mean. As soon as Sarah comes in, we're back to where we were. So we get this little bit of bounce, almost to a point where you can feel tempo, and you're starting to get into that as soon as Sarah comes in, back to where you were. So this is what I mean about just taking your attention just for a very short period of time, but it's filling in gaps. You know, when you're working with a vocalist like this, with Sarah's voice, she's not going to be singing, you know, all the time on, you know, beat one of the bar and it's going to be really predictable. She's going to just give you a particular cadence, a particular feel as to how she's feeling at the time, and just to drag the audience on a little bit, and not just sing like a metronome, you know, hitting beats and points all the time. Oh, let me just hear that. I want to hear this phrase because it looks like it's all in one breath, all joined up.
Would I wander through this wonderland alone?
And she holds on to these notes. Actually, it was even longer than it was picked up on the pitch monitoring software. But again, it was all in one breath. That's what it looks like. And, you know, super accurate. And this is really accurate vocally. If you're singing anywhere close to this, then you don't need to worry about getting any closer to these lines, because look at the way that Sarah just touches here, again over the line here, but it's still with the freedom of sliding from one pitch to another, regardless really of its relevance to these lines. She, nobody's ever going to be singing looking at these lines apart from maybe now in 2024.
Never knowing my right foot from my left, my hat from my glove.
And again, the art form that is singing, sounding like you're talking. And Sarah does that so well.
Never knowing my right foot from my left,
from my left. And kind of throwing that, you can see here, throwing that note away. It didn't really matter where that was, but it's giving that conversational quality to the vocal. So, and again, we can talk about her enunciation, the clarity of what she's saying, that you're picking up every single word. So everything is just so good.
My hat from my glove. I'm too misty and too much in love. We get too misty and too much in
And there we have it. So, I mean, going back, this is great because, this is what held notes by great vocalists look like. They're not over lines all the time. And going back, we had another held note that was, and here, and let me just listen. I'm going to just listen to it all over again. This ever so slight change in pitch that, again, this is microtones. So rather than going, na, and hitting notes, and being really overly bothered about hitting it, exactly where the note would be. You can get this bluesy quality to it rather than going going so you don't quite get there, and that's exactly what we have. Look at the way we're between the notes here, and again, this is something that you can do on the guitar. When you're bending a string and you might be playing a little bit of blues scale, and rather going to the note, fretting the note, just bending up to it. But you can do this where you don't quite go as far as the semitone. You go halfway in between. And again, it's not going to sound wrong because you're playing it in context. And here, this is just singing with expression and singing in context. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And full disclosure, this was forwarded to me by Seal just on WhatsApp, and it was a performance of Sarah's that I hadn't seen before. So yeah, thank you to him for doing that. But it's the kind of voice that you've just got to draw everybody's attention to because it's on a totally different level. And yeah, it totally blew me away when I saw it for the first time. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comments section below. Of course, let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!